Hello and welcome back to our daily blog. And today we're looking at one of the most well-known of all the parables, the neighbourly Samaritan, or as it's more often called, the parable of the Good Samaritan, taken from Luke chapter 10, verses 25 to 37. This is quite rightfully a well-loved parable, as the themes of love, compassion, fear and judgment are universal, and the message to love our neighbour as ourselves is, of course, Jesus' second command, the first being to love God. The parable itself is told in response to a lawyer who seemed to be testing Jesus by asking about eternal life. Why would he want to do this? Did he want to prove his own knowledge of the scriptures or try and catch Jesus out? We're told he was justifying himself, proving that his following of the law made him righteous in the eyes of God and therefore worthy of eternal life. Jesus, in the wonderful way he is depicted in the Gospels, sidesteps the question by posing his own, asking the lawyer how he would interpret the law, thus putting him at his ease by asking him a question about his own occupation, thereby getting into his comfort zone and drawing him into the conversation. The lawyer's interpretation of the law was pretty standard for the time, and indeed the same answer that Jesus himself would have given. Love your neighbour. It's taken from the Torah. In fact, Deuteronomy chapter 10 verse 19 says, "So show your love for the alien, for you were aliens in the land of Egypt," reminding Jews of the time that they were slaves in Egypt, a land that was not their home before returning to the promised land. But the lawyer's next question, who is my neighbour, prompts Jesus to tell the story. A story we all know well. A man was travelling from Jerusalem to Jericho and was set upon by thieves who robbed him, stripped him, beat him and left him for dead. Now to Jesus' audience, this would have been a familiar tale, as this was a notorious stretch of road for thieves and bandits, with many twists and turns to hide and jump out at travellers. A priest walks by on the other side of the road. Now we know that Jewish priests would have been concerned with the purity laws set out in Leviticus, and touching a man covered in blood would have caused them to become impure themselves. Particularly as many people reading the parable believe the priest must have been travelling to Jerusalem and therefore would need to be in a pure state before entering, and indeed may have been pressed for time. However, this argument isn't really acceptable, as Luke makes it clear that the priest was going down the road the same way as the man. So he's travelling away from Jerusalem and therefore away from the temple, not going to enter it. And so the purity law wouldn't have been as pressing, particularly as the law made it clear that priests should care for strangers. And if the man had indeed been dead, the priest should have performed a burial. Of course, it's hard to check if someone is dead if you're passing by on the other side of the road. Levites belonged to the Hebrew clan descended from Levi, the third son of Jacob. I don't know about you, but I can only remember the names of Jacob's son, and therefore the tribes of Israel, by singing the song from Joseph and his amazing technicoloured dreamcoat. Reuben was the eldest of the children of Israel, with Simeon and Levi the next in line. Levites held responsibility for helping priests and performing special tasks in the temple, so the same rules would have applied. So two men who were well respected, versed in Jewish law and seen as righteous, passed by on the other side and left a man to suffer. Then came the Samaritan. Now Jews hated Samaritans. Ancestrally, Samaritans claimed descent from the tribe of Ephraim and the tribe of Manasseh, two sons of Joseph, who was the 12th son of Jacob, or the one with the dreamcoat, who have links to ancient Samaria, which is now consisting the majority of the territory known as the West Bank. Now, in the Talmud, which is a central post-exilic religious text of Rabbinic Judaism. That's a mouthful. The Samaritans are called Cuthites or Cuthians, referring to the ancient city of Cutha, which is geographically located in modern-day Iraq. So the Samaritans practice Samaritanism, which is a religion closely related to Judaism with just a few differences. So Samaritans believe that their worship, which is based on their Pentateuch, is the true religion of the ancient Israelites from before the Babylonian captivity, which they see as slightly different. The Samaritans believed that Mount Gerizim was the original holy place of Israel from the time that Joshua conquered Canaan. So the major issue between Jews and Samaritans has always been the location of the chosen place to worship God. The Temple Mount of Moriah in Jerusalem, according to Judaism, or Mount Gerizim, according to Samaritanism. The fact that Jesus chose the Jews' symbolic enemy as the hero of the story and the true neighbour is very telling. The same way that Jesus chooses to speak to the Samaritan woman at the well at the beginning of his ministry in John's Gospel. We shouldn't blame the priest and the Levite. They were probably afraid that they too would be set upon by thieves, and it's not for us to judge another's actions. But it is the true compassion of the Samaritan that Jesus is emphasising, someone who went out of their way to help another, the true meaning of love and sacrifice. Jesus came to save us all, no matter who we are, no matter what we've done. God sees us all the same as his children, and his deepest wish is for us to see each other in the same way. In the case of Jew or Samaritan, it shouldn't matter whether they worship God on one mountain or on another mountain, just that they love God, which should be a uniting factor and not a dividing one. The same is true for church today. Some people like to watch these vlogs, some people prefer a traditional Sunday service, some like loud worship music, and some like quiet reflection. None of these are the right or the wrong way to worship. It's a personal choice between you and God. So some things to think about. How can we be better neighbours? And how might we place compassion above fear? I'll see you again soon. Goodbye.